I'm going to take you out here into the Harambe Wildlife Reserve, and I just have a couple of safety reminders to go over before we get started. This is rough and rugged terrain, and there are no seatbelts, but I do need you to stay seated at all times. Even if the truck is temporarily stopped, it won't be that way for long. In fact, I'm not going to be able to stop for every animal we see. So to get photos, you may want to use an action or a sports setting, something with a high shutter speed, so you can take pictures while I'm driving too. Get nice clear photos that way. Video is great as well, and you are welcome to use flash during the day if you need to, but we're going to be pretty far away from the animals, so that won't be super helpful. It's also quite bright. Now, let's see here. I also will ask that you keep your arms, hands, and legs inside the truck. It can be tempting to try to put your camera out of the truck, but if you drop it, I can't stop for it. I can't stop for any dropped items. So make sure your valuables stay inside with us the whole time. Now, this is the Little Ituri Forest here. Looks like there's an okapi grazing over here to the right. Now, okapis do have horse-shaped bodies like zebras, similar markings as well. They are not equines. They are only related to giraffe. You can see the skull shape is identical to the giraffe. It's a little bit smaller. They also have the same type of horns, very short flesh-covered horns on top of the head. If you're looking by the watering hole, there's a small dark animal tucked between the bamboo and the rocks, laying down because they're nocturnal. It's a yellowback duiker. They sleep mostly during the day. Very shy as well. They get the name yellowback from the dorsal crest, but duiker means diver in Afrikaans, and they're called that because they literally dive into the nearest bush to hide if they get scared. Animals in the forest are very timid like that. The okapi are really no different, but that's because it helps protect them from predators. Those stripes are very good camouflage. Stripe patterns are going to help conceal animals in shadows of the trees, making it a lot harder for them to be hunted. Now, because of their shy nature, animals can be a little harder to see. So if you see something I don't, feel free to let me know. Use the spotting guide above you. It'll give you a good idea of what you're looking at if you're not sure. Just give me a description. I can probably take an educated guess. There's some bongo here on the left. Bongo are the heaviest of the forest species of antelope. They weigh between 500 and 900 pounds. They're all in the bushes. They're called the ghosts of the forest, and you can see why. They're very rarely spotted in the wild. Quite beautiful, kind of an amber color to the coats there. Now, it's hard to see the horns, but there are two different shapes when they're full grown. The horns will either be parallel or crisscross. The male's horns are longer and more parallel. Female's horns will sometimes form an X shape in the back. So it's one way to try to tell the genders apart. Most species, the males are just larger, but not in all animals. The okapi females are bigger than the males, which is a difference from the giraffe. Giraffe males are bigger than females. So it just depends on the animal. We're heading down into the river here. I see some ears sticking up by this log. It's going to be on your right-hand side. That's a Nile hippopotamus. The Safi River is an extension of the Nile, so you can see it's resting in the water. They're nocturnal, so they're going to rest and sleep during the day, spending most of the time in the water where it's nice and cool. There's some more here on the left. You will see them out of the water and on the shore, but typically only at night. So they wait until night to feed, and they'll eat the vegetation in the area. Now, they can spend a long time underwater, completely submerged, about 8 minutes without having to surface. Pelicans here are called pink-backed pelicans. They have white and gray feathers, but there is a slight pink coloration on their back that gets bright during mating season. It's really the only time you can see it. But they are one of the smallest species of pelican, too, about a 7 to 8 foot wingspan on average. Looks like there's some Nile crocodile down here on the shore to your left, just under the bridge. Now, Nile crocodile have a bit of an underbite, so that's an easy way to tell crocodile from alligator. The teeth point down and upward if the mouth is closed. You'll see them in both directions. Alligator's teeth would only be pointing downward, but you also would not find alligator in Africa because they're not an indigenous species. Something else that makes a crocodile unique is that they are one of the only reptiles to take an active parenting role. Reptiles hatch their eggs, but most of them are not active with that process. The crocodiles will go as far as putting the eggs in their mouths to help incubate them and hatch them by rolling them with their tongues. It cracks the shell and makes it easier for the babies to emerge. This is a baobab tree here on the right. Lots of people call them the upside down tree because of their appearance without leaves. They do go leafless like this most of the year throughout the entire dry season, which is coincidentally 9 months long. So you will see leaves, but only during that very short rainy period. Great way to conserve water. Gives them an unusual appearance though. That's how they got the name upside down tree. Yeah, those big horns you see belong to the Ankoli cattle. Those horns, each horn's about 3 feet, but they can stretch 5 to 6 across. Those horns happen to be hollow inside, filled with cool blood, so they're not as heavy as they look. Think of the horn like a giant air conditioner for the cattle. It's filled with cool blood. When the animal gets too hot, the blood is filtered from the horn, circulates through their system, cools them down, cycles back into the horn. That is how they regulate their body temperature. They also have a small pouch in their stomach known to contain just warm blood. If they get too cold, they'll circulate that and warm up. Try to make sure everyone's staying seated for me. You can lap sync kids, but try not to hold them there like Simba. It's a little too bumpy for that. Those shaggy animals back behind the cattle were called wildebeest, or the white-bearded wildebeest. Wildebeest is an Afrikaans word and it means wild beast, just like it sounds, very similar in language to Dutch. But there's another popular name for them, the wildebeest. When they vocalize, sounds a little bit like no, no, sounds like they're saying new over and over again, hence why they're also called the new. Spelled G-N-U, and it's just a reference to the sound they make. These cattle sound like other cattle. They're very similar. It's just those horns that make them really special there. But because of that, they're very valuable domestic animals. The Ankoli cattle are incredibly valuable and the only domestic animal that currently live on the reserve. Now, the people who are credited with domesticating them are the Watusi people, so they're also called the Watusi cattle. Now these dogs to your left are called African wild dogs. Very beautiful, similar appearance to a wolf or a domestic dog, but not related. They're a separate branch of the canine species, so they have a lot of differences. If you have a dog at home, you know domestic and wolves, they have 5 toes. These guys only have 4. They don't bark, they don't howl, they squeak, and they use that to communicate with each other. They're very, very clever animals, very smart. They use a lot of strategy when they hunt. But they also can run for such a long time. They're known to be able to chase nearly any prey to exhaustion. Now, these antelope are quite good at protecting themselves. The sable antelope use their long, sharp horns to ward off threats. Those horns are about 3 to 4 feet long and curved back. They are naturally less likely to be attacked from behind because of the shape the horns are pointing in.
Yeah.
Now, if you remember seeing a sign as we entered the reserve that said Harambe Wildlife Reserve, it's the name of our reserve, there's an animal carved into it. It was the silhouette of the sable antelope because when it was established in '71, they were chosen as the official mascot. So these orange mounts you see on both sides of the truck, they are termite mounts. Now, unlike anthills, they are as hard as concrete, though they are really just made from mud, dung, and saliva. It's not uncommon to see antelope standing on them and using them as lookout points. With flat terrain like this, it's going to be important that they have higher ground to get to, like that overlook we were on, or those termite mounts. But you'll also see taller, larger animals like elephants or giraffes using them as scratching posts. Now, I don't see any in the area, but you can tell there's definitely been giraffe through here based on the trees. You'll notice there are no leaves on any of the lower branches. There we go. Looks like we have one giraffe sighting here. They're the tallest land mammals. Quite a reach. They can stand up to 20 feet tall. 18 feet tall if it's a female, though. Tallest land mammal. They'll spend most of the day grazing, 16 to 20 hours every day, just eating, and in that time they can consume up to 75 pounds of food. That's why there are no leaves on the lower branches, because of how much they eat. They will literally eat every leaf they can reach before moving on. And to help them get a little higher into the trees, they have those long tongues. Similar tongue to an okapi, but a bit longer. Those are the wildebeest again on the right. A tongue of a giraffe is 18 to 21 inches. Now, fun comparison, the baby wildebeest, because it's a migratory group, they need to learn how to walk and stand very quickly so they don't get left behind when the herd starts to migrate. In fact, a baby wildebeest is usually standing and walking within 15 minutes of being born. In comparison, a baby giraffe needs at least an hour. Now, these are juvenile giraffe here, clustered to the right-hand side. You can see the size difference. They're never small animals, though. Now, it takes them an hour to learn how to walk, in part because they are about 6 feet tall when they're born, so they need a little bit longer to learn how to balance. Still very impressive. That's that long tongue there I'm just talking about. Those horns are again called ossicones. Now, we have, of course, much shorter necks than the giraffes, but we actually have the same number of vertebrae as them. 7 is a common number among most mammals. It's the same number a human being, an okapi, and a giraffe all have on their spine. Exact same number of vertebrae, which is interesting to think about. Now, something they have very different to human beings is their hearts. Now, a giraffe's heart weighs 21 pounds and stretches about 2 feet long in its chest. Now, because of their physiology, they also have the highest blood pressure. Their heart has to pump very quickly to circulate the blood through their bodies. Now, those antelope over there by that other baobab tree, those are called Patterson's eland. Now, Patterson's eland are the largest antelope on the reserve. Now, they're going to be tan. The males change color as they get older. They turn gray. Females will stay tan color their whole lives and weigh only up to 1,200 pounds, which is bigger than anything we saw in the forest, even than the rhino. However, the males, they can be 2,000 pounds, standing 6 feet tall at the shoulder. You'd think a very heavy animal like that wouldn't be agile, but they can still jump about 6 feet off the ground. You see the monkeys on the rocks to our left. This is the mandrill. Smaller females are about 100 pounds. The male, I don't see a male, but they'd be about 300 with a bright red and blue face. The color will get brighter if they get excited or agitated. Largest monkey species as well. And that is an elephant there to your right-hand side. A little bit far away, a little hard to see. Now, don't worry, we're probably going to see some more. Now, you won't see a herd of elephant if it's a male, just a single elephant, because the males, they don't spend a lot of time in the herd. They leave the herd as soon as they start to mature, spend most of their lives isolated like this, alone, and that's because a herd is a very strict matriarchy. It's a female-led and dominated society. The males will separate themselves from the herd as soon as they start to mature, even before they are full-grown. You can also tell from the size difference, the males can be 14,000 pounds, the female's only going to be around 8,000 pounds on average. Now, a problem facing a lot of animals out here in Africa, there's another elephant here to your right, is deforestation, loss of habitat, mining. Large animals like this are facing the toughest challenge from that because they need so much space and so much food. Now, as they are losing their habitat, they're going to farms and villages looking for food, but because each elephant can consume 300 pounds of food a day, they find a farm, they're going to destroy it. And that causes some tension between them and the farmers, and puts the elephants at a lot of risk. Elephants are an endangered species. Part of that is because of their ivory tusks. They use their tusks as a tool. You can see the scrape marks here in the clay. They'll scrape their clays out of the rocks to get that clay out. That's going to be a vitamin. It has vital minerals they don't find in their plant diet. But it's also the reason why they're hunted by humans. So to keep them safer, we do research projects. And there was one that we're quite proud of called an Elephants and Bees project that was partially funded by the Disney Conservation Fund. You can learn more about it if you go to Rafiki's Planet Watch. But elephants happen to be quite afraid of bees. Because of their incredible hearing, they can hear the buzzing of bees up to a mile away. True story. Now, as soon as they hear that sound, they run from, and they even sound a vocalization, an infrasonic vocalization and alarm to let other elephants know of the danger. We can't hear it, but due to research, we noticed that they were making that. So, they've been able to use that and build a beehive fence. It's elephant-safe fence, so to speak, that you place around the perimeter of a farm or a village. The elephants won't go anywhere near it. Keeps them free to roam and find food, but a lot less likely to stumble into dangerous areas. Looks like there's a baby elephant behind this baobab tree here. Now that one is probably almost a year old, judging by the size. I would say around 1,000 pounds. So they're also pretty large babies at birth, about 300 pounds, usually around 30 inches tall. But they do have the longest pregnancy as well. It's about 21 months, almost 2-year pregnancy. More elephants here on the left. You can see visible the herd just sort of hanging out. And whenever you see their flap their ears back and forth, that is all an elephant has to do to cool down. It's going to effectively lower their temperature 15 degrees like that one's doing. But if you see them spray their backs with water, that is not to cool off. That's actually to make a mud coating, which is a sunscreen. Elephant skin's so sensitive it gets sunburned, just like you or I. So they cover themselves with mud, dust, and dirt to protect from that. These are the greater flamingo. They are the largest and the lightest pink of the flamingo species. They get their color not from genetics, but entirely from diet. Now their diet is brine shrimp, another seafood. Filter it through their beaks. You can see the ones there on the island that have the gray feathers and the gray legs. Those are baby flamingo. You can tell they're less than a year old because of the coloration. It can take a year to turn pink. The color, again, is not genetic. It's from beta-carotene-rich food, like that brine shrimp and the other seafood they eat. Oh, looks like there's a white rhino. I'm going to pull up just a little bit so you can see here. So, white rhino weigh about 3,000 to 5,000 pounds. They're actually much larger than the black rhino. There's really not a significant coloration difference. It's believed that they got their name because of a misunderstanding. They were originally called white rhino by the people in white, but because it sounds so similar to white, the most popular theory is that it was simply misheard and people started calling them white rhino by mistake. That's where the name comes from. Those are zebra on the right-hand side. Those zebra are black with white stripes. If you were wondering, you can always tell by looking around the mouth. There's one species that's the opposite. Whatever color you see around the mouth and around the lips is the color of the skin underneath. Now the white rhino are also very much at risk. The black rhino are endangered, and that is due to poachers for the horn. But unlike the ivory tusk, the horn of a rhino is not a rare substance. It's actually made from keratin, just like your fingernails. So it's found on the human body, and yet humans are the only animals that hunt the rhino because they think the rhino horn has medicinal properties. It does not. It's also continuously growing. It can grow 6 inches every year. Looks like there is a cheetah back here on the left. Kind of looks like a log, though. It's towards the center on the left-hand side, laying down. They don't sleep, but not during the day. They hunt during the day, but laying in the grasses like that is going to make a really good camouflage for them, so their prey won't see them coming. They are incredibly hard to see, but that is on purpose. Their prey's not going to be able to see them coming either, so they have a huge advantage there. Now, their biggest advantage is, of course, their speed, because they're known to be the fastest land mammals. The lion, however, they're significantly slower. There's a male here, just resting on the left-hand side on the top of the kopis. That's the name of this rock formation. They spend 16 to 20 hours a day sleeping and resting like this. Their top speed is significantly slower. They can only run 35 miles an hour. That is slower than most of their prey. So when they hunt, they rely on things like stealth, strength, strategy. However, it is not the male that will do the hunting. It is almost exclusively the females. The male's job is going to be to stay home and watch the pride, watch over the cubs. The females go out together. They use strategy and strength. Over here to the right, we've got some zebra, white rhino, ostrich, lots of animals. Now the ostrich are actually a little bit faster than the lion as well. The zebra, 40 to 45 miles an hour as well. Ostrich 30 to 35. But when they run, they'll stretch their wings out catches the wind, helps them turn around, change direction, basically steer with their wings, even though they don't fly.
Yeah.
I see some burrows here. At the base of that tree on your left, there is a warthog hanging out. Now, warthog are the largest burrowing animals. In fact, the burrows can be a little small for them, so they usually back into them. Yep, I do see an ostrich. Let's talk about the warthog for just a second, though. Now, they're pretty small, but they're actually surprisingly fast. They can run the same speed as a lion, 35 miles an hour. Very territorial. They also like to roll around in the mud. Like the zebra and the elephant, they use mud in a different way. They actually use it as an insect repellent. This is a white rhino and an ostrich again here. Ostrich eggs next to these females on the right. The eggs are about 3 pounds each and strong enough that you could stand on them without cracking.
Look at the eggs.
They are, of course, the largest bird and very strong, so their eggs are strong as well. An ostrich egg can withstand 200 pounds of pressure without breaking. Another ostrich here on the right. Again, it's a female. You can usually tell the gender by the color, because females tend to be gray, males tend to have black feathers. Looks like we're heading out of the reserve here. So I do thank you for spending your morning with us. Hope you had a great time. Every safari is a little bit different. You never know exactly what you're going to see. If you've never been out in Africa at night, we do recommend coming back and joining us for a night safari this evening. Dusk varies a little bit every day. It's going to be as soon as it's dark enough. We will start doing night safaris. It'll be a bit different. We don't allow any flash during the day for the safety of the animals. I'm sorry, at night. Flash during the day, but not at night. You can take photos if you want to, as long as there's no external lights. We don't allow any flashlights either, because most of these animals will be asleep. And you'll be able to see their nocturnal behaviors, their patterns. But the nocturnal animals are really what people like to see at night, like the lions, hippos, sometimes out of the water. Might even see a hyena or two. So if you want to come back for that, we'll be running them until park closes this evening. The rest of the animal attractions do close up a little bit earlier, especially Rafiki's Planet Watch. If you want to go over to Rafiki's Planet Watch, they were doing a couple of procedures in the animal hospital. If you're lucky enough to catch that, you might be able to go.
So we just got off a Kilimanjaro safari.
Super cool. We saw giraffe, a rhino, zebra, crocodiles, hippos,
Ostriches,
everything.
white rhinos.
So cool.
Super
Highly
cool.
recommend it.
Yeah, you have to come here if you ever come to Animal Kingdom.